Begin the current Daf Mesechtes Bava Metzia Daf Nun Ches. Begin the bottom of Nun Zayin Beis, second line up in the bottom of the Amud, where the Gemara continues explaining the halacha of our previous Mishnah. Now, our Mishnah was discussing certain things that don't have a no, which was the theme of the previous Mishnahs. We were discussing a no. That's the theme of Perek Hazav regarding business transactions and regarding kinyanim and unfair pricing. Now, in that list of things that don't have a no, were avodim, shtaris, karkois, and agdashes. Now, once we mentioned those four that there's no no, we mentioned other things that apply to them. There's no kefil, there's no abba b'chamisha, and shemechinim is not nishba on these items. And the noisesach shemesach is not meshalim, and that's what our Gemara is going to continue explaining on this halacha that a shemechinam doesn't swear. And one of those items are hektish, which is one of those four items we mentioned. The Gemara is going to ask a stira on that halacha. The entire world, and we should have a chakasha b'sameach. Some discussed in today's daf are hektish. Like we said, one of the four items is a shemechinam doesn't have to swear, although generally he has to swear that he was not pesheya. These four, again, exeris hakasha, he doesn't have to swear, and a shemesacha, although he has to pay if it gets stolen or gets lost, he doesn't have to pay for these four items. Some other important terms of concept in today's daf are schar Shabbos. If the person is allowed to get paid for the work he's doing on Shabbos, that depends if he's a schir yom. If he's working, getting paid for the day, then he's not allowed to. Versus schir shavua, if he's getting paid by the week, then in that could be sublimated the payment for the Shabbos. There's a different opinion that holds afamoicher sever Torah margolas behema. Even if you're selling a sever Torah, meaning also that a sever Torah, a precious gem, or an animal, in the that not just these four items mentioned in our previous Mishnah, but also these items, as the Gemara can explain, there's no aino on them too. And then we continue with the halacha, the next Mishnah, which is a well-known halacha, just like there's an unfair transaction in monetary ideas, so too kachayno b'dvarm. There's a halacha called oinos dvarm, which our next Mishnah discusses, that is unfair treatment in regards to emotional and to regard to interpersonal affairs also. So beginning the current daf on the bottom of Nun Zayin Beis, second line up from the bottom of the Amud. In the previous Mishnah, we ruled regarding hektish that a shemechinim is not nishba. If a voluntary a guardian, he doesn't have to swear. And shemesach in meshalim, a paid guardian, if they're entrusted with hektish and it was stolen, so the shemechinim again is not obligated to swear, and the shemesach is not obligated to pay. On that, the Gemara says, so that's what the words in the Mishnah were, shemechinim and the nishba v'chulu. And again, one of the four items was hektish. Says the Gemara, it seems to be contradicted by Mishnah Masechta Shkalim. What does the Mishnah say over there? It says, B'nei ha'ir, people of the city, shesholchu es sheklein. So they sent their shekalim in the month of Adar. Everyone has to send their shekalim for the karbanas hatzibur that's going to be in the new month of Nisan for that year's karbanas. Now what happens is, it was stolen or was lost from the shluchim, from the agents who were taking their money up to Yerushalayim. So it depends when this happened, the theft, or when it was lost. Meaning, if when they're coming to their court case, the truma was already taken because they would take the trumas halishko, which was that there was these chambers with all the shkalim, and 3 times a year they would take in 3 boxes a truma. They would take off some of those coins, and from those coins they would go and buy the karbanas. If the truma was already taken by the time they're having this court case with the shliach, so they swear to the treasurers, these shluchim, that they were not negligent regarding this money, because the gizbarin are the balidin. Why? Because since the trumas halishka was already done, there's no more responsibility of the loss on the original owners. It's on hektish, because the Gemara is going to tell us later on that the kahanim, they would take truma on even what was lost, that it should be a portion in these boxes for whoever sent their shkolm and it was lost, and he doesn't know now that it was lost. So if the truma is already done and now they're coming to the court case, essentially the one who's going to suffer the loss is really hektish. So the one who the shliach swears to is to the gizbar. Not vim lav, but if not, meaning, let's say they found out beforehand, so then the truma is not going to be including them. It's only on the condition that they have to send other shkalim in place of that. Oh, so therefore the people of the city are the litigants of the shluchim. So then says the Mishnah Nishban lebnei ha'ir. They swear to the people of the city. And this is really the critical part of this halacha that we're asking from, is that you see that there's a nishbayin on a hektish, because that's what the shkalim are. But we just continue citing the Mishnah, So if the shliach swears and he's going to be patur because he swears he wasn't negligent, okay, the people of the city, now you got to get new shkalim to take the place because it never made it there to Yerushalayim. What happens if nimtzu, which this would be going on the case of if it was lost, it was found, which that would be going on the case of a stone, the thieves give it back. Says the Mishnah, both of these monies will be considered as shkalim because once something is sanctified, it's sanctified. And you can't say, okay, let's use it for next year. No, both will be hektish. Okay, but the main thing is, you told me that there's 4 items that a shomer chinam doesn't have to swear. Avodim, shtaras, karkois, and one of them was hekteshes. Wait a second, there's a Mishnah Masechet Shkalim that says, if they're hektish shkalim, and the shliach, the shomer chinam, has to swear to the people of the city that he wasn't negligent. Didn't you tell me it's one of the 4 items that a shomer chinam doesn't have to swear on? So on that, Amar Shmuel, he says, Hacha b'noisis sachar eskina. So what does that mean? I thought a shomer sachar is also pater. So in other words, this shvuah. Yeah, we said hektish you don't swear. That's what our Mishnah said. Our Mishnah said by hektish is one of the 4 items of shliach a shomer chinam doesn't swear for. And now you're quoting a Mishnah Masechet Shkalim that says he swears. That's the question. So says the Gemara, you're right. This shvuah is not to exempt the shomer from tashlumin, because the shomer chinam is not swearing that he wasn't negligent. And the shomer sachar, the guy who's getting paid, is not swearing regarding, he's not paying for gneva veda, like the halacha of a Mishnah. This shvuah is regarding something very different. We're talking about a shomer that was getting paid. V'nishboyin, you know what he's swearing? He's swearing that it's not in his possession, lital scharon, to go ahead and get paid from the people of the city. He wants to get paid. Now, the Gemara later on is going to ask, wait a second, if he's a paid custodian, his job is to make sure it doesn't get stolen and lost, and he didn't finish the job, how could he get paid? But essentially the Gemara is saying, no, of course, they're pater, the shaymim, because it's hektish. So what's he swearing for? He's swearing that I don't have it anymore. I did my job, so pay me for my job. That's what he's swearing for. Of course, to be exempt, of course he's going to be exempt and he doesn't have to swear. So the Gemara says, wait a second. If that's the case, I have the following question. You told me one of the cases was, if let's say the truma was already taken, you said, okay, he's going to swear to the gizber, to the treasure of hektish. But wait a second. This is not about pater, who he has to swear to show that I'm not responsible. It's about getting paid. The payment's not on hektish. The payment to who hired him for the job? The people of the city. He should be swearing to the people of the city because that's who he wants to get paid from. I don't care if Mishnitru Mahat Truma. So Mirabba, he says an interesting way how he says it. He says, no, Nishboyin lebnei ir. Of course, you're right. You're right. He's going to swear to the people of the city to get paid, but b'maimin gizbarim. But that should be in the presence of the treasurers, because ultimately this case is the loss is going to be on hektish, like we said, because if the truma is already taken, the ultimate loss is from hektish. Ki heicha delei nichshadinu. We don't want them to suspect them. So we just want the treasurers to hear that although the hektish is suffering the loss, that this guy wasn't negligent. Or v'inami, or another reason could be that they shouldn't call them, these negligent ones, meaning the people of the city. So we want him to do it in the presence of the gizbar, but of course it's only to swear to get paid from the people of the city. But the Gemara asks on this pshat of Shmuel, what the Mishnah in Shkalim was saying, that if it was stolen or lost, the shomer sachar, a paid custodian, he's liable for if it gets lost or stolen. So, says the Gemara, here also, you're right. Although you're right that this shomer sachar, the shlich, doesn't have to pay, because that's what we said in our Mishnah, that we were minimizing the halacha of tashlumim of the shomer from hektish, but a gerayim yilifsid, and this is what Rashi had referenced before, but at least let him lose his payment, because he was indebted to protect it from theft and from loss. And that's the reason why he's getting paid. He didn't do the job. So you're right, although he'll be exempt from payment, but how could I pay him if he didn't do the job? So the rabbi says, no, nignevu, when we said this case that it was stolen or lost, was oinsim type of nignevu. And this we've quoted in the previous Chavtes and the Mem Gimel, we quoted this, what Rabbi says, this is where Rabbi says it. Amar Rabbi says, nignevu gets stolen ballistim mezuyin, armed banditry, that's the oinus, and that type of shmir he never accepted upon himself. And Avdu, and says, got lost, he had a boat at sea that sank. That's the type of a loss, that's oinus, that the Shemesacher, that was beyond what was contractual obligations were. So yes, he will be exempt, and he will get paid for the job for what he did. That's one approach for explaining why it's not a difficulty, the stira of the Mishnah Masechet Shkalim on our Mishnah. However, another approach, Rabbi Yechonam, he says, Hamani, don't ask for the Mishnah Masechet Shkalim. You know who the town over there is? Rabbi Shimon, who's brought a Masechet Shavuos of Membeis and Membeis. Nobody says Kodshim Shechai Bachur Yusin regarding Kodshim that a person has responsibility for. So if the one who's the mafkid, the one who's depositing this object is responsible, so therefore, according to Rabbi Shimon, it's like his own item. And here also, all the people of the city are going to have to go ahead and give other shkalim in place of it. So it's considered chayiv b'achur yusan. Oh, when you have a kodshim that you're responsible for, yesh l'mayna. Although we said in our Mishnah that kodshim is one of the 4 items is noina, that's if it total. If there's no responsibility for the individual owner. But if he does have achrayis, he said harei alai. It's something that he has to ensure. Then there is going to be a no and v'nishbon aleim, and you'll have to swear in it. Okay, so good. So that doesn't contradict our Mishnah. The Mishnah in Shkalim that says that he's going to swear to the Bnei Ir is because the people of the city are responsible for that hektish. So therefore, it's like their own money. But a regular, classic hektish, you're right, you wouldn't have to swear. But says the Gemara, wait, that's very well. Actually, nitra mahatruma. That if the truma wasn't taken yet, so then we said that they're going to swear to the people of the city. And at that point, it's the chiv achrayis of the people of the city. But mishmitra mahatruma, the problem is once the truma is taken, so that's kotrim shenechai bechar yusininu. That's not anymore that they're responsible. At that point, once the truma is taken, the people of the city don't have to give nishkalim, and that's actually why we said that he swears to the gizber at that point, and he doesn't swear to the people of the city. So then, if that's the case, why is he swearing to the gizber? He should be pater from a shvua. Because this is not kosher that's chai b'chur yusin anymore. The time learn the brayso, when they used to fill up these 3 boxes from the money from the chamber where they put all the shkalim of the people, that's what's called the truma, to take from the money of the boxes for all the karbonath tzibur. And they would take this elevation, they would take a separation on the condition that there should be 3 boxes that are the primary and the separation elevation, and then there would be the money that's called shiram that would be left over, and they would bring the shkalm that remained in the chambers, and the ones in the boxes would be what they would use for karbanas. Now, the Brisa teaches that Tarmin, when they would take off this elevation, the coins that would actually take from the chamber, that would be even on that from someone who sent his shkalim, that would be ha'avad. If it got lost, and he didn't know they got lost, still the truma is going to count his shkalim. And valagavai, and that which was collected, but it's still on the way getting there. It didn't get there yet. O vala asad ligvois. It's even on that which is going to be collected. Meaning, if someone it was extenuating circumstances, and he didn't send his shekel in Adar, so the halach is he would send it throughout the entire year, and he would put into these shayfaris with the boxes that were written tikun chadtin, the new shkalim, and the chamber was taken off 3 times during the year. Bepresa Pesach, which is 2 weeks before Pesach, Bepresa Tzeres, 2 weeks before Shavuos, Pesach Chag, and 2 weeks before Sukkot. Now, when it came time to take the truma, they would put the monies in the boxes in the lishka, and they would take it to truma. Now, when they would take the first truma, they would stipulate even what's going to be collected, and so too by the second time, and by the 3rd time. Now, if someone brings it after the truma was taken the 3rd time, he would put into the shayfer it's a box just in the shape of a shayfer. It was called tiklan atikin, the old shkalim. That would fall for the shiur lishka, the leftover the lishka, and from that is what they would use to build the walls of the city and the towers. But one thing is that we see is that once the truma is taken, so then there's no more achrayas. If that's the case, so why is there a shvua even after the truma was taken? But you told me that the whole reason is because that there's achrayas. But once it's already taken, so then there's no more, it was already done already, so there's no more achrayas, so why are you swearing? So Rabbi Elazar says you're right. Truth is that this shvuah is coming to exempt the shliach from tashlumin, and he's a shemechinam. The question you had asked was, what do you do with halacha of our Mishnah? So the truth is, you're right. Min ha'Torah, the shliach, the shomer is totally pater. But shvuah tarkan chachamhi. It's a rabbinic institution. We don't want people to be disregarding, careless regarding the safeguarding of hektish. So the Rabbana instituted a shvuah, but the truth is the halacha is like our Mishnah that min ha'Torah you're going to be pater. This is just a rabbinic oath. So that's three different approaches. The second one we fell off on. It can't be Reb Shimon because it didn't make sense. Then what's the shvuah after the truma was taken already? But those were the three different approaches regarding to be miyashav the stira between our Mishnah and the Mishnah Masechet Shkam. And then we move on to the next item. The next thing we said was that regarding hektish, which again is one of those four that we mentioned in the Mishnah, in mishal. If he's a paid custodian, he doesn't have to pay like a regular shemisachar if it's stolen or lost. And now we have another stira. We learned in our Mishnah that a paid custodian doesn't pay not for karka, not for avodim, not for shtaris, and again, one of them is not for hektish. But meaning seems to be contradicted from a brisa. The brisa is talking about a gizbar, the treasurer of the hektish. If hasecher es hapoil, if he hires workers from hektish, meaning to pay from hektish money. Now, why would hektish be paying a worker? So if let's say lishmer sapara, to safeguard the para duma, which they bought, now they would safeguard it that it should not become invalidated because of, let's say, someone would put a yoke on it or develop a blemish. So we should be zeicha also very soon to have the para duma. The halach is you have to make sure that it's safeguarded. So you got to pay somebody to watch it. So that's from hektish. Or let's say lishmer satinik, to watch the children that they should not become tummy. Who are these children? So what's interesting is they used to have children that would be brought up for the purpose of the paraduma. They would build these courtyards built on rocks so that it would be a hollow beneath it, as the Gemara says, because they made a special maila, special elevated status for the kohen that would burn the paraduma, that his separation should be in the state of purity, and his fellow kohanim were not able to touch him for 7 days. The Gemara says in Yomim Daf Chesem Beis, these children never in their life became tameh, because they were kept away from anyone else, and they weren't able to become tummy from anyone buried beneath, because these were built on rocks that there's no tumah that there could be underneath. So they would fill up the water to sanctify, and then to spray on the kohen all 7 days, so that when he does the paraduma, and again that was because they were metamim b'ba yom, because we say that it's full yom to exclude from the tzedukim, but al kapanim, so you have to pay someone to watch these children for all the years, bringing them up and on this kibbutz, of Tahara, and lishmer esazroyim, which either it means when you're talking about they would be watching the grain, either it's talking about a field that has new grain that was planted for the purposes of the carbon omer, which we should also bring very soon, the second day of Pesach. Now they would watch it from 70 days before Pesach, as Gemara says in Menachos Apei at Aleph, or it's talking about the Shemitah year, which it's very hard to get grain, and you need to bring for the carbon omer and the shtei alechem. So they would have these svichim, these aftergrowths. Basically, you have to watch it, make sure no one goes and takes it, because we needed to bring it as the carbon. So all these people that when you're paying them from hektish money to do these jobs that hektish needs, say ein noisen leschar Shabbos. So if he's what's called a schir yoim, if he gets paid by the day, you're not allowed to pay him for the day of Shabbos, because that's halacha regarding Mekach HaMemcher. You're not allowed to do business on Shabbos. You can't pay him. But therefore, lefikach achrei Shabbos alav. If something happens, let's say on Shabbos, someone ruins it, he doesn't have to pay, because although he's a paid custodian who's responsible if, let's say, it gets ruined, I'm not getting paid for Shabbos. So for Shabbos, I'm not responsible. Now, but if schir Shabbos, but if, let's say, he was actually getting paid by the week, then, or schir chaydish, he's getting paid by the month, or schir shana is getting paid by the year, or schir shavu is getting paid for the shemitah cycle, then nisan lo schar Shabbos. Actually, then you could pay him for the job that he's doing on Shabbos, because that gets what's called it's nivla. It gets absorbed in the payment of the other days. It's not explicit for Shabbos, so that's not an isser. The fikach achrei Shabbos alav. So therefore, if something would happen over Shabbos, he is responsible because he's getting paid for Shabbos. Okay. One thing says the Gemara, and this is the question that we're asking, is my lav l'shalim. When you're telling me that he's responsible, is that he would have to pay to hektish, but I thought you said that when it comes to hektish, the shomer sachar doesn't have to pay. And here you see that he does have to pay. Says Gemara, no. When we said he's responsible, it means lahafsid scharoi. It means that when you're going to lose your payment if something happens. So the Gemara says, if that's the case, reisha diktani. What do you do with the reisha? You told me that if he's getting paid by the day, and he cannot get paid for Shabbos. So then whatever happens on Shabbos is not his responsibility. It means that he's going to lose his payment. But umi is Shabbos. But what do you mean? Is he getting paid to say if something happens, he's going to lose his payment? But you told me Shabbos doesn't get paid for Shabbos. How could it be if something happens, he'll lose his payment? You're not paying him to lose the payment. Wouldn't make sense. So Simon says Ishtik. So Rabbah was silent. He didn't have an answer to the question. So he said back to Rav Yosef Bar Chama, says, Midish Shmilach, did you hear something regarding this? Like a good child that you're asking. Amalei says, Hachem Rav Shesha says, they did a kinyan from his hand, meaning that if something's going to happen for his shmira, he's going to pay. Oh, so then for sure he's going to pay because he made himself come down to this and he created a lien on his assets. You're right. Meaning generally, the shomer sachar, when it comes to hektish, is not going to have to pay. But here they did a special kinyan to go ahead and obligate himself. Is mishabed nafshe. So again, that's why he's going to have this responsibility. But you're right. In general, you're not chayiv. But a hektish stipulated before and then performed the kinyan with the worker that he become liable for his negligence. So therefore, he's going to be liable for his negligence. Now the Mishnah said that Reb Shimon Omer, Kodshim Shechayiv B'Chriyusan. When you have kodshim that you're responsible to ensure, then yesh l'mayna. Then we consider it like your own. Then there's going to be the unfair pricing halacha. But v'sheinach b'chiyusan, then he differentiates, not like the Tanna Kamma. He says, then if there's no chiyuv b'chiyusan, then it's like a regular kodshim, and there's not going to have halacha l'mayna. So Tanna Kamma Rav Yitzchak bar Abba. There was a teacher of Brises who taught the following Brises in front of Rav Yitzchak bar Abba. Now this Brises is regarding what's called shvuas hapekadon. When you swear regarding a deposit someone gave to you, swearing that you don't have it, so that's like stealing it. That's one of the cases that you chayav asham gezelis, a carbon asham for theft, because you're denying that what the deposit the guy gave you. Now on that says the brisa kodshim shechayev. If it's a kodshim, if it's a carbon that the owner is responsible b'chriyusan to ensure it. For example, let's say he said harei or lie. That's like a neder. He says it's upon me. And then he separated a certain animal and he deposited by his friend. Then that friend denies that the deposit's by him and he swears to that effect, and then he ultimately admits. In that case, says the Brisa Chayev, that shomer is going to be liable for a carbon shvua, because Shani Karben, and this is a little bit inverted, I think I was going to ask on this, because I recite regarding it the Pasuk in Vayikra, which talks about the chiv of shvuas hapekadon, of swearing falsely regarding a deposit, B'Hashem v'chichish. Because the pasuk there says nefesh kisechata umol omal ba'Hashem, and the person is going to misappropriate to Hashem. V'chichesh ba'misi is going to deny to his friend the deposit or the loan or whatever. Then he's chayav for Hashem gezelis. Now, the Gemara assumes it's what it sounds like the Bryce is saying, that the reason why he's chayav is because it belongs to Hashem. So therefore, the pasuk of umol omal ba'Hashem v'chichesh would apply. But then says the Bryce, v'she'ein chayav b'chriyusan. But if the owner who deposited by you is not responsible, whatever happens to it, then pater, then the one who swore is going to be exempt. Because regarding that, I can recite the pasuk ba'amisai v'chichesh, which is, it really says v'chichesh ba'amisai, but what it's saying is that because they belong to amisai, your friend, and ba'amisai your pater, because it needs to be Hashem's, and it's not, and so therefore you're going to be pater. So the Gemara says, Amalei says that klapi laya. Which direction you're going? This doesn't even make sense. As the Gemara continues on the base, ipcha mistabra. It's logical the other way around. In other words, everything is inverted over here, because when the person who gave it to you, if he's not responsible for this carbon, like whatever happens to it, he doesn't have to insure the hektish. Then it's more Hashem's than when he is chay b'chriyusan. If you come to hold him responsible, meaning that to be mechayiv this guy by if it belongs to Hashem and to exempt if it belongs to a regular person, then this is what it should have said. It should have said, Kodshim that are chayav b'chriyusan is pater. Why? because that's ba'amisa v'chichesh. Because the guy's chayv and achrayis, like his, it's not like Hashem's. And if you're not chayv and achrayis, then you're going to be chayv, because that's ba'ashem v'chichesh. Moreover, says Rashi, the truth is, for a regular person, you should have been chayiv more, because when you're watching something of a hekdesh, you're patur from a shvua and whatever happens. So that wouldn't make sense anyway if that's really what you're trying to say. You should be more chayiv when it's a regular person's and not Hashem's. So how do we read the brisa? So Amalei, so when he asked him on this brisa, he said, Isamye, should I delete this Mishnah from my teachings? Because you're right, it seems like a difficult brisa. Amalei says, Loi, no. It's that this shani koyer behen ba'ashem b'chichesh, that doesn't mean ba'ashem b'chichesh and not ba'amisai, and to hold that you can be chayiv for this shvus hapikoden because it's hektish. No. Hachikama. This is what the Bryce was saying, and you have to read like this: Kachim shechayiv b'achri yuson. When it's a carbon that the one who's depositing by you, that carbon, he was responsible to ensure to give back the hektish, and you denied it to that person. Then you chayiv a carbon shvua, because that is amisai. So it's both questions really are being answered, because you're right, it's not really how we originally read it. And if you're going to come to exempt him because it's hektishes, that's what we're saying. No, it says b'ashem b'chichesh, this rabu min b'ashem b'chichesh. We're including, meaning it's even though there's an element of gavoya of hektish over here, it's still amisai, because he's chayiv b'achrayis, this guy, and therefore it's like still considered his, and so it's like considered like a head get. But if there's no chiyuv of achrayis, then pater, because that I'm going to recite on that to exclude it ba'misa v'chichesh, meaning because I need it to be ba'misa v'chichesh, and here it's not amisai. So the image ba'misa v'chichesh, that's excluded because it doesn't have a chichesh ba'misai. It's only hektish. There's no chiyuv achrayis. That's how you have to read the brisa. Now the Mishnah said another opinion. Although the Tanakhama said only 4 items is no ainah, which is hektish and these avodim and shtachis and kalkais. He says there's also other things too. If someone sells a Torah scroll, margalis, if he sells a gem, ubehem, or an animal, there's no overpricing. You could charge way more for these items too. So the Gemara explains Tanglin the Bryce. Rabbi Shloimy says, so too, if someone sells a sefer Torah, there's no ainah. Why? There's no end to its monetary value because it's priceless, and therefore it's not limited to a certain market value. So the Gemara says that's regarding a sefer Torah. Why is there no ainah on the animal or pearl? Because a person wants to pair them up. Someone has a good ox for plowing, so he looks for another one that's just like it to pair it up in the yoke. If you would go ahead and pair up a weak ox with a healthy one, it actually would ruin the healthy one. So to a beautiful gem that you need to have those matching earrings, so you'd spend whatever it takes to get the other one, and if it's not limited to a specific amount, and therefore that's why there's no ainah on that. So Amr Lai, they said to him, everything a person wants to match up. It's take your daughter shopping at Pesach. I'm saying you have to get a matching top and the matching shoes, so everything shouldn't have an ainah. Says you're right. Everything you want to pair up, but these are significant, and it's very dear to match it up. But it's not so significant, these other things, and therefore their halacha would apply in contrast to the animal and to the gem. It says ad kama. Now, how far does this go that it's not going to be considered as a no? You could charge as much as you want. So maybe now it says ad kedei demeim, up until its monetary value, meaning double the amount, 200%, 100%, meaning to give double the amount of its value. That's how much, but more than that would be problematic. He says actually other items too. He says, so too, if someone sells a horse, or a sayif, or a sword, or a chatitim, or a shield, b'melchama at wartime, that's also, there's no overcharge, because a person's life depends on it, and therefore that's not considered an overpricing during that time.
Indicates that Rizal was concerned about capitalism versus socialism. I mean, why not free markets on everything?
The Torah doesn't want you to do unfair pricing.
Is it possible?
Yeah. That's loisainu isha samisai. The Torah doesn't want you to hurt someone. And as we're about to go to the next Mishnah, that the same thing applies to emotions too. But financially, we don't want a person to take unfair advantage of another person. So that's the same. This is not considered unfair advantage. This is considered fair pricing for these types of items at these times. Now, actually, with that, we go into the next Mishnah, which continues on the theme, but it opens up a new category. Just like there's unfair practices regarding buying and selling, so too there's unfair practices regarding words, which is a person should not tell another person, how much is this object, which is a very interesting halacha that you walk into a store and you say, oh, how much is he selling this for? And he doesn't want to buy. So that's not such a pashta thing. You can't just necessarily walk into a store and say how much he's selling this for, because it's hurtful to the person who he thinks he's making a sale, and you're coming in there just because you want to match, price match it or whatever, this and that. That's considered a nas devarim. If a person was a person who had repented from his sinful ways, you shouldn't tell him, remember your early days, remember you used to go to Wendy's and you used to get the cheeseburger and this and that. Don't tell him his early days, because that's a nas devarim. Imu ben gerim, if he's the son of converts, you shouldn't tell him, remember the acts of your father, remember your father used to be on stage and he used to do this and that. No, Kishnem, it says a pasuk in Shemais, that a convert, so it's specifically for gerim, you should not afflict and you should not oppress. Is a special halacha of which the chiddush is, meaning that even though it's not even about him, it's about his father, says Taisus, even that should not be mentioning because of the pain that it's going to cause another person. So we'll learn the brisa that explains this halacha. The pasuk says, "V'yikra le'soinu ishas amisai." A person should not hurt his friend. Now, by no is dvar makazim adaba. The pasuk is talking about that the unfair verbal practices. Is that really regarding the hurt of words? Maybe it's the hurt of money. When the pasuk has said previously, when you're going to be selling a sold item to your friend, you're going to be buying from your friend. Says the pasuk over there, a person should not pain his brother. We already spoke about the pain of money. Talking about selling and buying. So what do we do with this pasuk of a person should not hurt his friend? That's by Nas Devarim, that's regarding the pain of words. Says the Bryce, okay, so what's a Nas Devarim? So if he was a person who was repenting, don't tell him, remember earlier actions. If it's the son of converts, don't tell him, remember the actions of your fathers. If he himself was a ger, he was a convert, and he's coming to learn Torah. So a lot of gerim say it's very difficult for them to acclimate to the Jewish life. Al Yemeloi, don't tell him, this mouth that ate non-slaughtered and with mortal defects on these animals, shkatzim, bugs and vermin, balu matera. You're going to come to learn Torah, which was said from the mouth of the mighty one of Hashem. How could you learn Torah when you a few months ago you were eating all this crab and non-kosher things? So to another case, if someone has afflictions that were coming on him, if let's say there were certain illnesses that was coming on the person, he was burying his sons. A person should not tell him the way the friends of Eve said to Eve. And the pasuk says over there, they told him, behold, that your fear is your confidence, tikvascha, your hope, and the completeness of your path. Pay attention who's clean is getting hurt. What essentially they were telling him was that a person doesn't get punished unless they do something wrong. And it must have been that you got this patch from Hashem. That's not what a person is supposed to be telling a person that's going through a difficult time. That's considered a nas dvarim to tell a person those things. Another very different type of a case of a nas dvarim If there were donkey drivers that were saying, we want to make deliveries, and do you have any grain that we could deliver from you? We shouldn't tell them, look, go to that person, he sells grain. You really know that guy never sold grain at all. So if some guy Mesholach comes to your door, he says, "Oh, go to that guy. He's down the block, whatever." So and you know that's not true. So again, it's Ainos Devarim when you're telling someone something that's not really true. Budami says, "Afle yitla ina balamekach." Moreover, although we spoke about asking for pricing, even more, you can't even go window shopping. Don't put your eyes on the purchased item. When you don't have money, you're walking in the store and you're looking around, the guy's getting excited. That's also considered a naz dvarim, even if you didn't say anything, because of the emotional pain that the person thinks they're going to be getting a sale. Now, the Gemara explains now, why does it mention yira, fear of Hashem, in this pasuk? So that's what the Brisa comes to explain. Sharei, because all these things, the good or the bad, is not really easily recognizable. Rather, it's hadava masal alev. It's really something that's given over to the heart of the one who's doing it. He knows if his purpose is for the good or for the bad. He could say, I only did it for the good. I thought that I had grain to sell, or I wanted to buy this item that I was walking in for the store. You can't prove that it was not really that his purpose. So b'chaldava masal alev, anything that's given over to the heart, to the emotions of a person, it says in the pasuk, you should fear your God. Meaning you have to fear from the one who knows your thoughts. If it was for the good, or no, for that the guy's getting excited, he thinks he's making a sale today, and you had no intention at all, that would be a violation of Einaz Devarim. He says, Godel Einaz Devarim, it's greater the avla, the transgression of hurting someone with words, Einaz Mammon, than hurting him with money. Why? Because regarding Einaz Devarim, it says, like we just mentioned, you should fear your God. When it comes to Einaz Mammon, it doesn't say that you should fear your God. You see that it's a greater level of stringency regarding Einaz Devarim. Moreover, he says, when you hurt someone with words, that's hurting his actual body itself. When you hurt him with Einaz Mammon, you're only hurting his pocket. That's not as painful as when you hurt his body. A third difference, Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani says, "Zeh nitin le'shavan." Money can be returned. Zeh le'nitin le'shavan. A verbal statement cannot be retracted. Once you said that word, that hurt will always be there. You can't take no backsies, no tracksies on the words that you said. Related idea regarding the pain that a person could cause with his words. Tani Kamid Rav Nachman Yitzchak. There was a teacher of Brises who turned in front of Nachman Yitzchak. Whoever whitens the face of his friend in public, it's as if he has spilled blood. Malay said to him, "Oh, shapaka amrit, you're tining very good. You're saying very well." Why? Because the chazinale, the azal sumka, I see that when a person gets embarrassed, the red from his face flushes out, and it comes white, which is interesting. Taisus on different Azal says this, that it gets red first, right? We know a person gets red, always getting red, and then he actually becomes white, is because the blood is gathering to run away. So the getting red is actually like they're all, the group, the whole ego states, they're all getting ready, and yet, and then he turns white. So it's like shedding blood. Sheifer dam is the term we give for murder, which is spilling the blood. The blood is draining out of the person. That's what happens. It's as if he killed the person. Normally, Abai said to Abdimi, in Eretz Yisrael, what are they careful about? He says, regarding whitening a person's face, about embarrassing people, that's what they're careful. The Amr Reb Chanina says, Hakol Yordan leGehenim, everyone goes down to Gehenim, Chutz Mishleisha, except for three. The Gemara says, Hakol Sokataitich? You think everybody goes down to Gehenim? How could that read? No, Elaima, rather, the way you have to read is, Kol HaYordan leGehenim Oilam. Everyone who goes down to Gehenim comes out. Chutz Mishleisha Sheyardan Ve'en Oilam. Except for three who go down to Gehenim and don't come out. And who are these three? Someone has relations with a married woman, commits adultery with a married woman. Number 2, someone whitens a person's face in public. And the third one is if someone gives a wicked nickname to his friend. So the Gemara says, wait a second, isn't that giving a nickname the same as embarrassing a person? Isn't that the same idea? Hey, sticky, whatever he's going to call this guy, isn't that the same thing? Says the Gemara, no, that's the chiddush in that case is avagav the dash be b'shmei. Even though everyone has already called him this name for a long time, he doesn't get embarrassed anymore, so to speak. His face doesn't whiten because he's been called this since he was 7, and now he's already 17. However, this person is intending to embarrass him, and even that he's not even turning white is still going to be one of the 3 that goes in the Ken that doesn't come out. Now, just importantly, Taisus mentions in this bottom Taisus, he says, don't explain Chas Hashem that these people, because if you embarrass someone in the public, a lot of people are staying in purgatory for eternity. That would be pretty bad. He says, don't say that they don't come out forever, because the Gemara tells us shortly that if someone's Baal Eishes Ish, which we just said is one of the 3 that doesn't come out of Gehenna forever, has a chelik l'olam haba. Rather, what it means to say is, whoever goes into Gehenna comes out right away. And the fire of Gehenna does not take any control over him, as the Gemara says in Erevin of Your Testament Aleph, which we learn a Kabbalah from the golden altar. And as the Gemara in the last parak of Chagiga says, we learn from a Kabbalah from a certain creature called a salamandra. Except for these 3, they don't come out right away. But there are those that are judged forever, like the Mal B'nei Chaver B'Rabim, that the Gemara tells us shortly, he does not have a chelik l'olam haba, and that one actually is from that category. But there are those who come out after 12 months. For example, Abal Eishes Ish, which the Mishpat of Rishoy Yisrael Gehenim are 12 months. That's why for Kaddish, for example, we only say 11 months, not 12 months, because we don't want it to be shown as if he's a Rasha. But there are certain people who are judged for 12 months, but actually says Taisus, he taka stays there. So this is definitely, we should do tshuva, definitely. We all be careful in this, not to embarrass anyone, and therefore we shall be zeicha to Elam Haba, Mitzshem. We should be El Yanavi eating the Karban Pesach tonight in the Beis HaMikdash.